Okay. Welcome to my son's back porch in Birmingham, Alabama. I am in the midst of a move and all of this crazy stuff with COVID-19. So my studio is shut down at the moment and we're operating here out of the back porch. So that's what you get today. We're going to be talking about spiritual dream interpretation today. And we're going to spend the first good bit of our webinar talking about what spiritual dream interpretation is, how it functions, and then hopefully toward the end, as I mentioned, for some of you have already heard this, before we get started, we'll be doing a couple of live dreams to give you a chance to see how this works. Maybe try and pick a couple of folks we can pull over and allow you to see the be seen or be heard at least as a part of this Zoom presentation. Let me just begin by sharing with you a little bit about myself. I have been doing spiritual dream interpretation for almost 25 years now. It's something that I was a reluctant draftee into. Was never interested in dreams or dreaming, never interested in certainly dream interpretation. But I have a wife, and my wife is a consistent dreamer. She dreams rabidly. In fact, 4 or 5 dreams a night. And several years ago, 25 or so, she wanted to go to a seminar on spiritual dream interpretation, and we did. We went to that seminar and she has not quit dreaming since then. And somehow I managed to be the one who had that sense of connection to the interpretive process and began to be more consistent in being able to see and hear and understand what dreams meant. And like I say, been doing it for about 25 years now. I travel all over the world and teach on this topic and do demonstrations and webinars and work with groups, even training in some cases, people to pursue spiritual dream interpretation. So that's kind of my background. Let's look at dream interpretation for just a minute. Most of you are probably familiar with the psychoanalytical approach to dream interpretation. We've all heard names like Freud and Jung, very well known in the interpretation arena and in the psychoanalytic arena. We're going to be looking at things from a little different approach from how Freud and Jung saw dreams, and even some of the others that have been out there in the psychological arena. We're going to be coming at this much more as a deep encounter, as a spiritual event, than we are as a psychological process. So for Freud and Jung and those who follow that line of reasoning, not going to challenge them, not going to say they're bad, not going to say we shouldn't appreciate what they've done or the groundwork they've laid or the foundations that they've dug. But we're looking at dreams today from a different perspective. We're not going to be trying to analyze a dream based upon pursuing what the inner workings of what's going on the inside of a person. In fact, we're actually going to be presenting today the concept that dreams are more of an external event than they are an internal occurrence. So in the psychoanalytical world, we would see dreams much more as processing the day's events, processing the things we couldn't handle, relieving stresses and anxieties that we were internally suppressing in some way, handling the turmoil. In fact, you see a lot, there was an article in National Geographic, and I think maybe even the Washington Post did an article recently on how dreams had changed during this COVID-19 crisis, during this pandemic situation, because of the stresses that are on people. I want to suggest to you that while many people will say that presents us evidence that dreams are very internal and dealing with nothing but the stresses and the intricacies of our ego, our soulish nature, and the way we approach things, it also affirms for us that dreams are spiritual in nature. They are a process that helps us deal with the things around us. And in my opinion, in my belief, and doing this for this time, they are a process of receiving an external communication, external impartation, if you will, of something that we need to get through. Now, think about the importance of dreams for just a minute as we get rolling with this. If you haven't thought about it before, you probably spend, as your younger years, you may spend less time, and older years more time, but on average, we're probably going to spend about 8 hours a day over the course of our life on average that we are asleep. Now, if we consider that that's about 1/3 of our day, then by the time you reach the age of 60, you'll have spent 20 years of your life asleep. Now, for me personally, I tend to believe there has to be something of value. I'm not wasting 20 years of my life sleeping. There has to be something of value that is out there and waiting for me. If you look throughout history and throughout the cultures and the faith cultures of history, the various types of groupings of people in every arena, from religion to just cultural groups, every major cultural group has had some perspective that dreams were significant, until we get to the modern Western world. And then that has been suppressed and pushed down and pushed back in a tremendous way. If you want to just run through a kind of a historical perspective on dreams as we get rolling, I could suggest to you ancient Egyptian cultures. They believed that the dream world existed, and it was a bridge between the land of the living and the other side, the land where the deities and those who had departed abode. The ancient Hebrew cultures, where we find probably two of our most famous dream interpreters in history, in the ancient sacred writings of the Hebrew people, we find a guy named Joseph and a guy named Daniel. Those were famous dream interpreters. And the Hebrew peoples believed that if you went more than a single week without communication from God, from a deity, that deity was mad at you. Your creator was mad at you. They believed that it came in dreams. The Native American culture, where I'm from, believed that dreams were a sacred place, that you could step outside the mundane existence of this world and enter into a spiritual world. When we look at Islam, Islam has a belief of the dreams being a place of special authority to communicate truth. The idea that there's a supernatural world and it's a portal to the divine. In Hinduism, dreams can be an indication of your past lives and your rebirths and the connection to that deeper spiritual plane. The Taoists actually believe that dreams come from demons, and that especially nightmares are inspired and brought forth from the demonic. Buddhism maybe is, of the religions of the world, maybe one of the least clear on dreams in terms of what I understand of it. But even here, there was this concept that dreams carried you to another plane of existence. So if we look historically, culturally, and into faith or religious-based communities, which would be our typical way of examining something of a spiritual nature across the board, you're going to find that we have a widespread belief that dreams are more than a psychological event. There's a widespread belief over a long period of time that in many cases, dreams are communication from a deity, from a God, from a creator. But in many, many cases, that dreams take us into a deeper or different spiritual plane of some sort, that it is a bridge into another world or another dimension, if you will. Now, why is that important? Because we have to determine, if we're going to examine dreams from a spiritual perspective, where they come from. If they don't come from inside of us, if that's not the sole source of dreams, then there has to be somewhere that they do come from. I'm a believer that while some dreams certainly do come from within, they come from our psychological, our psyche, our makeup, our soul, if you will, that many, many dreams come from an extrinsic or an external source. They come from outside of us. Early beliefs tended to present dreams in the way that they came from one of three sources. Dreams either came from God, creator, the realm of good, the realm of light, or they came from our own self, our soul, if you will. And the third choice was that they came from some demonic realm, an adversary, the realm of darkness or the realm of evil. Those were the basic three choices. They have been the three choices for where dreams come from for as long as man has dreamed, perhaps. And what we see here is this distinctive, the modern view of dreams has become a psychoanalytical view. The ancient view of dreams has always been an external spiritual view. What we find is that when we look at dreams, we came to a point in history where things began to shift. And it happened with the rise of philosophy and Western mindsets and Western cultures. In fact, we can probably suggest a starting point for the shift from the spiritual nature of dreams to the more psychoanalytical nature of dreams came around the time of Constantine, well, my mind just went completely blank, came around the time of Augustine. And we see that there were some things that were presented with dreams that in the philosophical world began to say, okay, if you can't hear something, see something, feel something, taste something, or smell something, then it's not real. It's not a valid function. It's not something you have to be able to tangibly touch it, feel it, examine it for it to be real. And since dreams are spiritual in their nature, we couldn't tangibly touch it and feel it. And so over time, with this philosophical approach and the Western world adapting it, that it had to be something we could see, hear, feel, taste, smell, or touch, then we get into this mindset that it must be a process of the neurons in our brain functioning. That has to be where the concept of dream interpretation comes from. And we moved away, particularly the Western world, moved away from the spiritual nature of dreams. Now, the rest of the world, particularly the third world and the Eastern world in particular, has not nearly moved as far from the spiritual nature of dreams as we have in the Western world. So we're actually, in a sense, reclaiming something, reclaiming this idea of the spiritual value of dreams. Now, some of you may say, perhaps most of you in this setting are in this seminar because you do dream and you do think your dreams are important, but you're going to run into people, if it's not you yourself, who struggle with remembering dreams, or even perhaps say, well, I don't dream. So how could this be some means of communication into the spiritual world? I'm a spiritual person, but I don't dream. So I don't buy the idea, or you may know people who don't buy the idea that dreams are spiritual in their nature, because they want that connection, don't remember dreams, therefore this couldn't possibly be the way it works. Let me just say to you, dreams are like written with disappearing ink. They're fragile, they're valuable, they're beautiful. And when you begin to have that story in your life unfold, that dream story that brings strength and support and direction, perhaps, and insight for you, if you don't value that, if you don't grab hold of it, if you're not interested in just reaching out and placing value on it, it will flitter away very, very quickly. One of the things, if you find yourself not frequently dreaming or remembering dreams, or you're dealing with people who don't remember their dreams well, or don't seem to think they have them. We know we all have dreams. Our scientific community has proven through various means that in our REM sleep time, we dream. In fact, that if we don't dream, we're probably dying, because dreaming is a part of a physical process as well that does help us to survive. But if you find that you're not dreaming, or not remembering your dreams, you're probably dealing with an issue of simply not having placed the value on them that's needed to remember them. We want to be a people who begin to pay attention to our dream life. And if you want it to come to life, you want to be a person who enters in dreams, typically occurring at night while we're asleep, though practically speaking, we won't have time to get into it in this webinar, but practically speaking, a daydream, or what we might call a daydream, can be an equally valid spiritual communication and spiritual incident, a spiritual encounter. But typically at night, we're going to sleep. If we want those dreams to be valuable, one of the things we want to be sure that we do is that we go to sleep at a place of peace. Particularly in a day like today, in the world, in the state it's in, that can be a very difficult thing to do. It can be very difficult to step back and step away from the craziness of our day and let ourselves just enter a place of calm, enter a place of peace, enter a place of rest. But it's essential if we truly want to be open to the dream world. We need to build a habit of going to bed at peace. Now, one of the things that means, and I make no judgments on your character, your lifestyle, your decision-making process for how you spend your day, but one of the things that means is you're probably not going to want to be playing Call of Duty right before bedtime. You probably don't want to watch the zombie apocalypse movie right before bedtime. No judgments on good or bad on those things, but they stir us up. They create anxieties, they create fear, they release endorphins, they get us into a place where we're heightened, we're busy, we're excited, and in those cases, you will struggle to remember the dreams that you have in the night. You also want to sort of begin to train yourself to get up earlier. So in other words, set your alarm clock for the last possible minute instead of being in a place where your alarm clock jars you awake and you forget a dream. You begin to train yourself to arise, to awaken before the alarm clock goes off. That will help you ease into that wakeful state. And then the last thing you want to do is to write your dreams down. If you only remember a small fragment, if dreams are indeed spiritual communication from a spiritual realm, then by saying, I value this communication, even the least little part that I may remember, then you're setting yourself up to receive more communication in that realm. So writing it down, placing value on it, keeping it in that way will help you to remember dreams. Now we begin to say, after we say, I can remember my dreams, I'm having my dreams, what do I do with them? Let me just say to you that it can be extremely difficult to interpret our own dreams. We are notoriously biased towards how we already think and how we already feel. So we are going to be notoriously biased to try and make our dream fit how we already see the world. And that's not always the way these things work, particularly if we're receiving that input, that communication from the spiritual realm. If we're getting that input from the outside, we may need to recognize that we don't see things the same way. And so there can be a major difference there. It is very, very helpful, therefore, to have someone who you can trust who assists you in a less biased, at least we'll put it, I would hopefully say unbiased, but we'll be realistic and say in a less biased way to examine your dreams. What are they going to examine? What are you looking at when it comes to dreams? If the psychological world says there are fairly standard metaphorical meanings for dreams, you can almost create a dream dictionary of sorts and determine that a dream symbol, something within my dream means this here, and it means this here, and it means this here. And we have these standards for interpretation so that we can apply them across the board and try and reach into the psyche of the individual by use of a set of standards of what our common culture has created for the metaphor of our dreams. If that's the approach of the psychoanalytical community, and I'm saying that this is not the way that I see dreams from a spiritual perspective, then what is it and how is it that we deal with it? Well, we begin to look at the character, the qualities, the nature of the individual metaphors within our dreams. And we allow that spiritual communication, that spirit to spirit input from the spiritual realm to infuse us with an understanding of what particular characteristic, what particular quality caused this picture to be chosen to communicate a particular idea. Throughout history, for communication purposes, written language, even, for example, has begun in the form of what we call pictographs. Most of the earliest written languages were not individual letters, but they were pictures that conveyed concepts. We hear people, even in modern colloquialisms, talk about the idea that a picture is worth 1,000 words. And if a picture is worth 1,000 words, then how much more is a moving picture worth? So is it any wonder that a dream, an internal moving picture, would convey so much more than just a few individual words would convey? So if we want to understand the metaphors, we can't simply say a particular metaphor always has a particular meaning. A particular symbol will always represent the exact same things. We have to be open for the characteristics and qualities of that. Why was it chosen? What was the reason that this metaphor, that this symbol shows up in this dream? Then we want to look at some of the characteristics. For example, what are the features that serve to identify that particular item, object, or person? What is its qualities, the distinctive attributes that it possesses? What's its nature, the basic or inherent features that something is known for? What's it called? The name of it. Does it have a title? Does it have a particular function? What about word plays and puns? Something that might be used even from our culture and our modern interactions that might just give us that little humorous twist or thought. And we begin to take all these potential things that a symbol, that a metaphor could mean, and begin to sort through it, asking for the input. Why was this picture, this symbol, this metaphor chosen for this dream? And as we begin to learn to hear in a spiritual way, if dreams are indeed external, they come from one of those other sources of the three. Remember our three sources: God, the realm of light, the realm of good, the spiritual realm that's associated with that, demonic, the realm of darkness, the realm of evil, are one of the spiritual realms associated with that. If those two are the external sources other than ourselves, our three choices, then if we can make the connection to the one who gives the dream, or someone greater than the one who gives the dream, if we can make that connection, then we can get the input of what was intended by the use of this symbol. Now, I've got a question coming up that fits here really well in the Q&A section that asks about the idea of significance for dreams that are in color or not in color. That's a part of our evaluation of the symbols of a dream. For one thing, the realms of light and good and God, so to speak, versus the realms of dark and evil and darkness, so to speak, will impact the color of a dream. If you think about it, one thing we know about everything around us is that we cannot truly have color without light. As a result, we can be fairly certain that if we have significant color in a dream, it probably means that we are tapping into a spiritual dimension of light. If there is limited or no color in a dream, it probably means we are communicating or getting that communication from a realm, a spiritual realm that's much more associated with darkness or perhaps even evil in those metaphorical ways. Now, when we understand this, then it can help us to begin to perceive a little bit about the direction, at least, that a dream is coming from. And for most of us, we recognize that there is a tendency to see and recognize and feel that the idea that light and goodness is going to be a positive impact on us, and darkness or evil is going to have a negative impact on us. So now we can get a better sense or feel for the motive of the dream. Is it intended to discourage? Is it intended to create despair? Is it intended to cause fear? Does it come in more of a dark, black and white, muted colors type pattern? Then perhaps it is from that realm of spiritual darkness, and we are dealing with something that we don't want to follow, but we want to overcome. If the dream comes with more bright lights and vibrance to it, and beautiful colors and vibrant colors, then we can get the feel that it's more likely to be coming from that realm of spiritual light, that place where we would be more anticipatory of pursuing and following and being supported and aided in the process that we walk through in life. And so we might want to pursue that dream in a greater way. So yes, color can have significance in a dream. Absolutely so. Now, I want to do one more thing here before we jump to just giving you some illustrations, because one of the best ways to talk about spiritual dreams is to illustrate the idea of interpreting a dream from a spiritual perspective. I think we may have one dream that's already been dropped into the Q&A, and if any more of you are, have a short dream you think you might like for me to take on today, then you're welcome to do that. You can drop it in the Q&A, or we may call on you and bring you over in more of a live way if you're willing to do that. But before we go there, let me talk about the metaphors and pictures and symbols of dreams slightly, just for a moment. Now, I'm a spiritual person. I believe, that dreams have an impact across all sorts of spiritual lines and all sorts of spiritual realms. But I want you to understand that while dreams are external communication, and we don't want every metaphor to be wrapped up and say it's always exactly the same thing, there are going to be commonalities that come in symbolism in dreams, things that we do see come fairly frequently or be fairly repetitive. So there are certain types of dreams that we see over and over and over again, no matter where I travel in the world, no matter what culture I'm in, no matter what environment we're dealing with, no matter what religious or faith-based spirituality I might be dealing with. There's really no distinction. We see some of these dreams over and over and over again. And I could probably give you a top 20 or so, but so we have time to do a few dreams, let me just give you 2 or 3 examples. One dream that we see over and over again that tends to have a very similar meaning across the board is dreams where our teeth are falling out. Have any of you ever had a dream where your teeth are falling out? A dream where teeth are falling out is not always going to mean the same thing. The teeth are not always going to mean the same thing, but there are going to be some commonalities and some similarities. Now, when we're looking at dreams from a spiritual standpoint, while the metaphors will vary and though they may have some commonality, even though they vary, the context of the dream, the whole context of the dream is going to impact what the actual individual meaning of that dream turns out to be, or what the individual meaning of that, what the meaning of that individual symbol turns out to be. But as a rule, teeth are something that we use to chew on things, to be able to grind it up and be able to swallow it. In order to receive something, we need to chew it up. Certain kinds of teeth will have different kinds of impact. So we may have an eye tooth, something called an eye tooth. That might have to do with our ability to see or comprehend, envision. We might have a wisdom tooth at the back here, something to do with the way we perceive the world, the wisdom we have in approaching things. So those names of the teeth could have impact. But generally speaking, when teeth are falling out, it's going to have to do with losing your ability to comprehend something, losing your ability to digest it, to absorb it in some way. Another example of this would be being chased. I think someone in one of the comments here has already mentioned this idea of being chased. Being chased in a dream, being pursued by something. You are being pursued by an anxiety, a fear, a worry. Something that is trying to overwhelm you is a common meaning of being chased in a dream. The context, what it is that's chasing you, how long it's been chasing you, where it's chasing you from, where it's chasing you to, all of those things will have impact. But the general meaning of being chased in a dream is going to be the idea that I am being pursued. If it is more a black and white, dark, muted colored dream from that darker spiritual realm, it may be fear, anxiety, worry, stress, things of that nature that are chasing to consume and destroy us. If it is more of a dream filled with light and life and color from that light spiritual realm, from that realm of good, so to speak, then it's much more likely that we are being pursued for a reason of our need, pursued to capture us, to draw us into something that will be valuable for us. So the nature of the dream, while we may be being pursued, is going to shift based on the whole context. Are we wanting to escape, or are we wanting to be caught? All right. And we have so many other very common dreams. I just hit one real quick. It's just always fun. And probably many of you have had one of these too. We tend to run into them very frequently. Dreams of being naked in public and dreams of going to the bathroom in public. They're a little strange, but they're very common. People typically won't share them in a webinar, but almost all of us have had one of those at one time or another, or quite a large majority of us have had one of those at one time or another. Being naked in public speaks about vulnerability. I'm completely open. I'm completely exposed in a positive or a negative way. And going to the bathroom in public tends to be, or even just dreams about going to the bathroom, whether it be using the facility to void or to clean up through a shower or a tub. Either one of those tend to be about something in our life that needs to be released, that needs to be expunged, or something in our life that needs to be cleaned and set in order. And so if it's in public, it just means everybody else knows what's going on. They all see it, okay? So those are some very common dreams that we see fairly frequently. Now, we've got about 20 to 25 minutes left here. I could continue to talk, but I think you'll probably enjoy this webinar more if we illustrate the process of dream interpretation a little bit more. So let's look at a couple of the dreams that we have received. We'll see if here in a minute, maybe perhaps if any of you who, let's sort of give it to you this way. If any of you who have posted your dream either in the Q&A or in the chat are willing to share that dream verbally, I like that method of communication, or even on turning your video on. Don't have to turn your video on. If you will respond in chat or in the Q&A, well, probably not the Q&A. If you'll respond in chat to let me know you're willing to be a guinea pig, you're willing to come on either by video or audio, and tell me which or both, I will try and pick someone we'll actually bring on to the webinar and do them. Okay. I've got somebody who just agreed, so we're going to jump there immediately. It's Sunita, I believe it is. And Sunita Nightingale, let me find you in our list, and we're going to bring you over and add you in here for just a minute. I am giving you permission to become a panelist, and you should show up on the screen here with me. If you wish to turn on your video, you may do so. If you don't, you may unmute, and I will give you some guidelines for how we're going to get you to share your dream. I see it's probably the dream we have in chat, but let me help you. Okay, you're unmuted. Now then, here's what we're going to do, Sunita. What I'd like you to do is share your dream. Don't tell me any background, but it's, for me, the spiritual nature of a dream comes across, it comes through at a deeper way and a deeper level to hear, and oftentimes when possible to see that communication, as opposed to just having this in chat. So Sunita, if you'll just share your dream, no background information, nothing but the dream, then I may have a couple of questions, but otherwise we'll interpret and talk about it. So go ahead, Sunita.
I'm time traveling. I suddenly kind of come into top of a skyscraper that's still being built. It's dark, it's nighttime, and we're being chased. So I'm with two other people. It is quite dark. The person, I believe is female, catches up with us, ends up in a fight of some kind, and the two people that I'm with end up falling down a lift shaft. And unfortunately, what the lady didn't realize was that the two people that she had killed were her children.
Okay. All right. And in your dream, someone asked earlier about color, and I like to know about color. In your dream, was there color? Was it vibrant? Was it black and white? Was it muted? Tell me about the color in your dream.
It was really just a twilight, kind of almost like it was in the middle of the night.
Okay.
So lots of blacks and
So
dark
not
colours.
necessarily black and white, but in a darker setting that would be natural for the time the dream was set in.
Yes.
Okay, very good. Very good. And I love one of the things I'll just say before we jump straight to the interpretation on this, what about dreams is that the setting of a dream is very significant and it's very important. So when we see dreams at twilight or dawn time, either dusk or dawn twilight times, they will often relate to transition because it's a time of transitioning from dark to light. When we see a dream that's more in the nighttime, as you're talking about, it's often much more about testing and challenges that we're facing. Why? Because we often think about difficulties or hardships being associated with the nighttime and the darkness. So this is a great dream, and this dream is actually speaking to something for you about a process that you are in right now, that you are in a process of growth and increase, but it's been very difficult and very challenging. And you have had people around you who have been beneficial in the past, but not that they become a detriment to you, but they have they are in a much more difficult place than you are. In other words, if you look at the two folks falling down the shaft, they've lost their life where you have not. In other words, this dream speaks to the idea that you are in a place of growth and increase. It's been extremely difficult, and you've seen others who haven't been able to make it through similar, not necessarily the same, but similar types of circumstances. Not that they've lost their life in real life, but that they have lost something, that something of their self has been lost in the process that you are actually being able to overcome. So the dream is a really great encouragement. It says that while you're having a very difficult time pursuing the things that you are created for, you can overcome where others have failed and others have fallen and others have been drugged down or pushed down around you. How does that make any sense to you?
It does. Yeah. Thank you.
Very good. All right. Excellent. Thank you very much. And I'm going to return you back to the role of attendee at this point, and we'll look and see what else we have. Let me just say something else about dreams like this here. Oftentimes I get the question, what about dying in a dream? What about people who die in a dream? It is very rare that I see spiritual dreams in which death indicates a person's actual death. So, for example, the two other individuals who were the children of the person chasing or pursuing our dreamer in this last dream doesn't necessarily, let's say they had been people she knew, doesn't necessarily mean that they are going to die. It does, however, probably mean there is something they are dying to, or that they are losing in some fashion. So we're always looking at the symbolism, the metaphor, and what is drawn forth out of it. Now, I've got a dream in chat here from one of our anonymous attendees that asks, I often dream of a great white shark opening its mouth, but I wake up before anything happens. This is a dream that is a significant dream for you. This dream says that there are some really major things going on in your life around you that are attempting to consume you. There are some things that are trying to overwhelm you, and it has probably been a relatively consistent issue in your life, something that has been recurring and ongoing in your life that you feel as though you could be completely consumed by. The good news is that dream ends with you waking up. And in the sense of, it doesn't mean you have to be consumed by it. In other words, the dream brings hope. That's one of the things I love about spiritual dreams and spiritual interpretations. Even when they address things that are difficult or hard, like the feeling we're being overwhelmed or the feeling we're going to be consumed by the circumstances around us, we already probably know that and feel that. But by waking up before the shark's mouth has closed, before it's come down, we get the sense of hope. I can overcome. The dream may not be fun. The dream may not be pleasant, but its entire context reminds us that there is hope. We can overcome. We can get through. All right, let's see. I see another one, Natalie, I believe, who says she can share. I'm going to assume, Natalie, that means you can share by coming on with me. And I'm about to move you to the panelist side so we can see/hear you. If for some reason I'm misreading that, then as soon as you get here, you can tell me to send you away. But let's bring you on over here now. Natalie, we are bringing you on. Let's see. There we go. We have Natalie, and you're welcome to turn your camera on if you wish. Do not have to by any means, but you can also now unmute and share your dream. Same kind of basic guidelines I gave before. If you'll share your dream without any background or information, we don't want to be biased or swayed by something you might say about what's actually happening in your life. So just the dream, if you will.
Okay. Yes, I put it in the Q&A. It was last night I had a dream that I caught a mouse that was running around in my home. I caught it in my hand and I killed it and squashed it, and my housemates were like, oh wow, like you caught it. And I was kind of not surprised that I managed to do it.
Okay. All right. Great dream, though it doesn't feel comfortable. You know, probably
No.
none of us are thrilled with the idea of just grabbing a hold of a mouse and killing it, but it doesn't feel good. But here's one of the things about dreams. Dreams will not always fit our sensitivities. That's probably the best way to say it. When we're receiving communication, when we're getting something from the spiritual realm, we don't want to limit ourselves to our own moral values and judgments, because sometimes a particular image or a particular approach conveys the proper imagery for what we need to know, even though if it were in real life, it wouldn't fit with us. I noticed in chat, you weren't real thrilled with the idea of killing the mouse, but,
No.
but yet what the dream conveys probably does speak to where you are. So it becomes the right imagery. We want to be careful with dreams that we don't let our own biases cause us not to see something that's being communicated because it doesn't fit our exact parameters of how we would respond in reality. Dreams break reality. That's the bottom line. I mean, not just something like this. You could be building a house in a dream and you hang the windows suspended in the air before you build the rest of the house. That breaks the laws of physics, but it can happen in a dream. So we want to keep those kind of things in mind. Now, great short dream. This is a dream that says, basically, there's been something small but terribly annoying in your life, something that's been going on that has maybe not even been fully noticed, but when you think about it, it's just something that's more annoying or would just kind of feeds off the little issues and stuff in your life, and just is that tick in the back of your mind that's just annoying. And this dream is saying there's some things that are about to happen that are going to give you the ability to overcome and break through that situation and put that annoyance to an end. Now, in many cases like this, I wish I could tell you this is what that annoyance is. The dream doesn't really speak to what it is, but there's probably some little place that something's just been that little persistent pest in your life. And you're coming to a point of bringing it to an end. Okay. So If that makes any sense or begins to make sense in the days ahead, it'll
Yeah.
probably mean there's a little bit of a shift that gives you an opportunity to overcome something that you might not even recognize needed to be overcome until you're in the midst of dealing with it.
Great. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right. Let's see. Let's move you back over to the attendee side. There we go. Back here now. And let's see what we've got. We have about 10 minutes. We can probably do another dream. And let's see what we have here. Did I have anybody else who was going to share? I have one here that says, I would like to chat from Hazrat Ali 786. I'm not sure if you will help me out there, if that means you're willing to chat, or come over and chat. I also see a question here I'll answer real quick. So I'll give Hazrat Ali a chance to answer me on that in chat. I have a question here that says, there seem to be a lot of dreams with snakes on my Facebook and internet dream sites. Why so many snakes? Snakes actually turn out to be one of our very, very common dreams that we see very often. And one of the reasons that we see a lot of dreams with snakes, particularly right now, is that snakes will often, context will shift this some, but dreams with snakes often relate to deception, lies of various kinds. Think about it. A snake is a small head and one big tail, T-A-L-E, as opposed to T-A-I-L, but a big tail. And also snakes are venomous and constricting. And so they often do their work with their bite. So snakes often have to do with lies and deceptions, but they also frequently have to do with verbal attacks and assaults. And in the culture we're in right now, I told somebody the other day, guys, I don't know, I'm just going to be real with you. I told somebody the other day, I liked people a lot better before I started seeing all their opinions about what's going on Facebook. And I don't care on which side of the coin you are about what's happening with COVID-19. I'm just gotten kind of tired of seeing both sides. Everybody has an opinion, and it seems like everybody's attacking someone else with their opinion on all sides. And thus we see a lot of dreams about snakes right now. Why? Because there's a lot of verbal attack and assault right now. All right. So got that one answered. I see Hazrat is saying would talk. So I'm going to bring you over, Hazrat, to the panelist side so we can hear you. And give me just 1 second and we will get you over here. I think. Let me find you on the list. Well, I cannot find you on my list, Hazrat. So I wonder if your, let's see, your chat name and your name on inclusion may be different. So sorry about that, can't find you. But you're mentioning a dream about your father who has died. Hazrat, if I don't get you and we don't get to that before we close out, I'm going to be offering some private Zoom sessions for a few folks. If you respond to the email they're going to send out after this, we're going to give some free sessions out by Zoom. And Hazrat, if I don't get to you, since I told you I would do that, just be sure you respond to that email and be sure you tell me you're the one with the dream about your father, and we'll make sure you get one of those sessions if we don't get to you. I see you're talking about your father coming to you when he's troubled, when you're troubled. We don't have time to get into a full picture of what's happening when deceased loved ones come to us and show up. But let me just say this. My faith background, by the way, just so you guys know, I'll be open and honest with it, is I'm a Jesus follower. I don't know if I'd call myself Christian would be the term would be used in faith, but I'm more of a Jesus follower, but I'm probably different from a lot of people you've known like that. But anyway, I'm much more in my background of faith. Somebody dead coming to you in a dream is like this creepy, awful thing. And I just want to be real honest with you and be careful with you. This is a careful subject, a difficult subject, because it gets so many different perspectives on it from different places out there. Like my background, Southern United States, it's called the Bible Belt. Everybody I know would think suddenly I've gone into necromancy and I've worshiping Satan or something if I tell them I had a dream with a deceased loved one who came. But yet in reality, I've met with my grandmother after she passed away, and she brought this great comfort for some situations and told me what I was about to face as a situation. So there's this balance when it comes to deceased loved ones. It can be metaphorical. It can be a symbol or a picture of something, and we have to pay attention to that. Generational issues, things that represent the authority they carried in our life, things of that nature. But there can be times, and my tendency is to believe, not in a soulish dream, not when we have a dream that has come from within us, do we have a visitation from an actual deceased loved one, but when we are in situations where the dream is externally influenced. In other words, it comes from that realm of light or that realm of darkness. In either of those cases, we can have actually an encounter with a spiritual being or with our deceased loved one. More complicated than we have time in the last 5 minutes to discuss or explain in this setting. But Hazrat, let me just say, some of it will do with how much peace or comfort is being brought. Some of it will have to do with other things that are going on in your life and in the actual setting. So like I said, since we can't get to you and I can't find you on the list, if you'll fill that survey out and ask for one of the free sessions, we'll be glad to go over it with you. So that's awesome. I'm going to look at a few more of these and just try and answer some quick questions in our last 4 or 5 minutes. I have another anonymous dream attendee who says, I had a dream where I was really stressed, hadn't packed for a flight, and my sister was shouting at me, etc. And then there was faffing at the airport, and I missed my flight. Okay, so faffing may be either a misspell or a British term that I'm not familiar with, but I will take that to be that there was something that caused a delay and you missed your flight. This is a dream that relates to actually what the dream is kind of about: stresses and anxieties in your life. So for this anonymous dreamer, what this dream is speaking to is that you are positioned in a place where you are about to take off and move into some new things. That may be new spiritual things. It may be new natural things. It may be new work things. It may be new family things. The dream does not tell me what those things are. But what it does say is that you're positioned and ready to take off. It's a time of good things, transition, and increase for your life. However, there's a lot of stress in your life, and there's a lot of conflict and tension going on that you are going to have to overcome in order to be able to be propelled into the purpose for which you were created. So there's hope and there's opportunity, but it is a difficult season to walk through those things. So hopefully that will be helpful to you. I see another one here that speaks to, and I've got Philippa, who has mentioned she has one you would share. We just don't have time in the time we have left to do another live one. Sorry about that. Philippa would have been glad to come to you if we could. I see one here that says, a male celebrity is holding my hand and running off with me. He chose me over another person, and I was so happy. One of the things I'll mention about this dream, because it's really cool, is don't take a dream to mean something literally. In other words, don't think this male celebrity is going to suddenly come leave their loved one to come choose you. However, the symbolism of it can be important and significant. We want to be careful we don't take things literally when it's symbolic and then suddenly expect something that's unrealistic or that propels us in a direction that's probably not the best for us. But this is a great dream. This dream speaks of the fact that you're chosen, that you have value and you have worth. You may be a person who's been struggling with your value and your worth. And if that is so, please know that you are chosen. And there is one who has chosen you above all others, who's chosen you above all else. There is someone who loves you deeply and is choosing to pursue you. It is a spiritual journey that this is talking about. And if you will step back and wait and say, I want to know, I want to meet, I want to hear, then there's going to be an introduction for you in the spiritual realm. And you're going to make that connection that you need to recognize the value and the worth that you have. Great dream. Awesome dream there. Well, we have probably run out of time. I've only got about 2 minutes, and they have asked me to be fairly close on our time for the sake of the recordings. So we're going to just give you a couple of announcements and some things to know how we might can follow up. I want to say thank you to Simone Pintel, who Spirit Encounter, who made this possible for me, invited me to be a part of this through her participation with Mind, Body, Spirit over the years. If I did a great job, you can thank Simone. If I did a terrible job, then I have nothing to do with her, and she's a great person. So I want to thank her for that. And I believe she did a presentation on heart-to-heart cards and some readings earlier this week, and she's got some things out there and available for you with that. And she's encouraged me to do the same thing for you. So you should receive a follow-up email from the festival. And in that email, you will find a link to a survey from me. And in that survey, if you'll just fill it out, give me your feedback, how we did on the webinar, I would be very, very grateful. And as a part of that, you can check the box that says, hey, I'm interested in a free Zoom session for a dream interpretation. Or if we run out of those, I think we have about 20 Zoom sessions we're going to be doing for folks if you wish to take them. If we run out of those, there's a little cost involved, but you can still get a session over the next 30 days or so. If you're interested in it, fill that out, send it in, and let us know, and we'll be glad to make that available for you and do some more with dreams as a way of interacting and connecting. I just want to say to you, thank you for coming out and taking the time to learn about dreams. I'm a big believer that dreams are a part of the story of our life, and that they are stories to impart something to you. So I want to encourage you to keep dreaming, keep pursuing dreams, rest in peace, and have open spiritual ears, have open spiritual eyes, and an open heart to hear what's being communicated with you, to draw you into a deeper spiritual realm that will bring forth life and light to you in a way you've never experienced before. Thanks so much, and we'll see you again in the future, I hope.